Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Julian, co-founder and CEO of Adaptive, and we build automated labs to test AI designed proteins. So there are now basically like dozens and dozens of AI models for protein design, and the bottleneck is really generating real world data to validate which protein designs work and which ones don't, like kind of closing the loop between the computational prediction and the wet lab validation. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we've built a automated wet lab to actually make all of those proteins and test them for the different functions, process all the data, and then give our customers results with which they can improve their AI models. And we spend a lot of time automating a lot of the wet lab biology here. So this is very cheap and very fast compared to traditional CROs or compared to what people could do in-house. And also we build a lot of software around the wet lab so that our customers, the protein designers and the AI model builders, they can just go to our website, upload their proteins, get instant pricing, confirm their experiment, and then our wet lab workflows kick off immediately afterwards. And then basically you just get email updates whenever your experiments are finished, and you can download your data and then you can feed that into your AI models to improve them. And so this is a much nicer process than dealing with these sort of like CROs and sending PDFs back and forth and getting data in a PowerPoint and so on. Quick summary of traction. We raised an $8 million seed round at the beginning of 2025, where Long Game invested. And since then have been scaling quite nicely. So team is now 25 people. We tripled revenue in 2025, onboarded over 50 customers to our platform, and are working with some of the largest pharmas like Novo Nordisk, all the AI model builders like Chai, Bolts, Cradle, labs like Microsoft Research, dozens and dozens of tech bios that are designing thousands of novel proteins every month and testing them on our platform. So throughout 2025, we've really become the de facto data generation engine for protein designers. And now we're continuing to scale this in 2026 even more. So some plans here, what we're doing next is we're releasing a set of enzyme assay benchmarks. So protein designers can start designing new enzymes like PETase, so plastic degrading enzymes, and then test them on our platform. We've done all the wet lab setup for those, so we're rolling that out soon. And also, a few months ago, we released a new platform called Protein Base, where we open source data. So we open source data for people to benchmark their models on and train new models with. And then those models we again benchmark in our lab and release more data. So think of this as a mix of Hugging Face and GitHub for protein design. And on this platform, we're also running public protein design competitions where basically anyone can submit protein designs for a challenge. And then we test 1,000 or so for free in our lab and release that data. So we're creating like a sort of data flywheel with this. We're currently running one where we're testing binders against the Nipah virus, so one of the deadliest viruses and has huge pandemic risk potential. And we're generating new binders to block this. And the data is coming out next week. So stay tuned for this. It's looking really cool. We're just running all the assays here in the lab. Last thing I want to mention quickly is we're also releasing our API in the next couple of weeks. So we have had an internal API, but now we're rolling out public API access. And that means that basically anyone can integrate our wet lab with their protein design platform. And this is going to be cool because thinking a bit broader here, effectively, we think by the end of this year, we'll probably have like 95% of knowledge work, including science, effectively, being done by AI agents on behalf of companies. And so you can imagine these AI agents, they sit in the cloud and they design proteins and biological experiments, but they need the tools to interact with the real world. So if you think of Claude Code, for example, the big step change here was to have the agent live in your terminal on the computer where it has access to all the tools, like all your files, the browser, your email, and so on. And for science agents, the big step change will to give them access to experimental tools, like allow them to interact with the real world, to run real wet lab experiments. And will be the best platform for that, basically. So yeah, looking really forward to that. Check out adaptyvbio.com if you want to test some proteins or if you know anyone who tests proteins.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks so much, Julian. Yeah, I think, we love this as an infrastructure play, a bet on the fact that biologics and protein engineering is going to grow, is going to continue to grow. Particularly, looking at it from a longevity lens, we see that the growth particularly around using protein-based modalities for targeting all sorts of longevity targets, is only going to continue to grow, beyond just small molecule approaches. And so that's very exciting for us. And also, this just represents a kind of democratization of drug development and the pieces that are involved. So you no longer need to have millions of dollars and a lab in order to make progress on the early stages of your drug development. You can be at home as an individual with a laptop, start to generate designs for the proteins that work on a specific target, and pay for the experiments to be run and get back data and continue to make progress. And that's huge in terms of accelerating timelines of getting new types of drugs and longevity therapeutics to market. I'd be keen to hear more from you around the kind of range of assays that you have in the wet lab and how that's growing and changing, and what you're seeing being demanded from clients now versus when you were first starting up.
Yeah, so what we started out with was basically binding assays, because, I mean, in the end, what proteins do, they just interact with other proteins, and that's like binding to other things, and that's what most interactions are being mediated by. So we started out with this, and it's still like 80% of what we're doing. It's really where like most of the markets are. This is antibodies, this is diagnostics, this is like all sorts of applications are basically binding proteins. And there's so many things to do where we're just starting glimpses of what happens when people design proteins that then bind to other proteins that are also engineered. Like there's kind of like sorry, am I lagging a bit right now?
It's fine.
Do you hear me, Will? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, hear you fine.
So kind of like binding is still what most people are doing. Let me go on this slide maybe. And now up. Okay, I think it's lagging a bit less now. Okay, so binding is still what most people are interested in from a commercial point of view, but as the models progress in their capabilities, we think more and more molecular functions will be unlocked. So that's why we're already setting up the enzyme assays now, and we want to take it all the way to basically testing molecular machines on the platform. Right now, most people are interested in binding. That's what we've built out the infrastructure for. We're releasing the enzyme assays. We can do all sorts of developability parameters for therapeutic applications. Also, what we're really interested in is like more complicated functional assays. And so we're looking for protein designers that want to test those.
Thanks so much, Julian.